Are you building your own tiny home, but the more you get into it, the more complicated it seems? Then come along with us and we'll navigate through all the options and restrictions, helping you make this dream come true. Let's go. Hey guys, Musa here from Quantum Home Improvements and Solutions. Welcome back. And if this is your first time to our channel, it's great having you join us. And so now we're up to stage 7 of the building of this tiny home, which is not so tiny. And so I'm really excited to say that my mate Dani, the electrician, is coming to run the wires for the power and lights and for everything else. And also my mate John from Darnie Air Conditioning is sending the guys to run the power for the air conditioning unit. And then we're going to put bats in the walls to heavily insulate this tiny home to make it really energy efficient. Then we're going to line the walls with plasterboard, and then we're also going to put Villaboard in the ensuite. And so once we've done that, we're going to then put the furring channel on the ceilings, and then my mate Tony from Dani Plastering is going to help me do the setting. So now if you haven't seen the stages from 1 to 6 prior to this stage, I will put a link for them in the descriptions below. So stage 1 is where we made the base using Priority and Orcon steel. Stage 2 is where we used, again, Priority steel, making the walls and the roof. And stage 3 is where we made the retractable decking using Merbau timber, which I got from Bunnings. And stage 4 is where we filled in between the steel using repurposed timber, which I got from my mate Tony from DNA Plastering. We also put in the door and windows, which I got from Bradnan Windows, and Charlie from Top Notch Plumbing came and did the sewer work. And stage 5 is where we cladded and roofed the tiny home using Steel Roofing Supply Centre, which turned out amazing. And so stage 6 is where I put the flooring on, finished the carpentry internally, and Charlie came and finished the plumbing. And finally, I put the Hume cavity sliding doors in, which I'll talk more about later. And in stage 6, we had a lot of heavy rain, and the wind pushed the water past the flashing and the water came in. Not much, but I've got a corrugated profile, which is in foam, and just slipped it between the Colorbond roof and the flashing. And so now that'll stop the water from blowing up. And in preparation for this stage, I went through and pre-drilled into the top plate and bottom plate of the walls, and then put a screw into the steel beam to hold them firmly in place so they won't move after we've put the plasterboard on. And finally, I started drilling some 20mm holes through the 70 by 70 SHS steel beams for Dani to run his wires through. Now, I've still got a few more to go, so I'll get into it before he comes. Okay guys, I've got Dani from Darnie's Electrical.
Hi everyone.
And so Dani, look, after many years of talking about it, we're finally at the stage of doing the electrical. I've been talking to you about the tiny home for about 4 years now. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I've been watching your videos, and what you see on the videos and actually when you get here, it's two different things. I'm just amazed at how it's all come along, and all the work that you've put in. It looks like you've done a lot of work here.
So Dani and I have gone through and just had a quick look where we're going to put everything. Where we're going to run our power, our switches for the lights, where we're going to put the lights, where we're going to put the fans. So I'm going to put small fans here, and also the smoke detector, where we're going to put the subboard, and we've nominated everywhere and it's looking pretty good. So I'm going to go through that with Dani once again, because we've just done a quick walk around. Okay, so Dani, I'm going to put a switch here. That's going to be a two-way switch from the door to this bedroom. So if you're walking in, you don't have to go back and switch the light over there. You can just switch it off here. Okay, but also we need to do it from the bedroom to the ensuite. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
So we'll do it, what do we normally do for switches? 1350 off the ground?
Yeah, 1350 usually, yep.
Bed's actually going to be sitting this way facing the window. So I'd like to have power on both sides, just in case we want to put a lamp, also a charger for the phone.
With these brackets here, what I like about them is you've got the adjustable screw holes. So
if you don't put them level, you can level them out. Okay, so I'm using these 90-degree brackets purposely because there's going to be an architrave coming through here, and if the bracket sits on the outside, the other ones that we're using, then what's going to happen is it's going to push the plasterboard out, and then that's going to be an issue because then the architrave is going to sit a bit awkward on this area. So I'm just using these 90-degree ones. Okay, so Dani's been going through and drilling through all the studs and also the noggins, so then he can run his wires internally. And so just in this area here, Dani's going to run wires from the top. We're going to access our wire or power from outside, run it through the wall in this section, and then we're going to run the subboard here. So all the wires are going to come to this point. So you're able to put a bracket even on an angle of timber. That's fantastic. That really is a big benefit.
Yeah, like if you were to use the other ones,
Yeah, you couldn't do it.
you wouldn't be able to do
Yeah.
it. Right. So this one I tend to use everywhere, just easier.
Okay, so now Danny's running the wires and he's running above the joists. Unfortunately, it's the only place he can do it. So Danny, what's this circuit for?
So this one here, we're just going to run it for these power points in the kitchen.
So you'll run the kitchen on its own circuit?
Yeah, because what happens generally, you use a kettle, microwave, toaster.
And that'll blow out the amperage. Most people go wrong. They run too much power in the kitchen on the same circuit. And so when you put especially the jug, if you boil that, that's like 2,500 watts. I don't know.
Yeah, that's almost 10 amps.
Yeah, just by itself. Yeah.
On this circuit, we have 20 amps. So
yeah, okay.
Already halfway.
Yeah, okay, great. I'm happy to do that, Danny. I don't want this to keep tripping.
Yeah,
Good.
no problem at all.
So Danny, just got to ask you, what is the distance you usually do for downlights? This is a 3 metre by 3 metre room, not exact. How far off the wall do you normally come? Because when I did the house, I came off 1.1 by 1.1 metre off every wall, but it's a bigger area. So how much would you suggest here? I'm thinking of putting 4 downlights in here.
Well, because it's such a small area, I think if you come at least 750.
Yep, okay.
Off each side.
Yep.
As long as it's going to work where all the battens,
yeah,
all these beams are running. Because you got to also keep in mind, if we're going to put a fan, you can't have the fan going like on top of the light, because then you'll get
a disco going. Yeah.
Unless if you don't mind that's
It's fun working with you, Danny. But you're now doing a lot of rail work and also road work. Is that correct?
Yeah, mostly rail at the moment. I was doing a lot.
Yeah, but that's contracting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Just a big shout out to the guys at John R. Turk, especially Adam, for organising this wire very quick smart for me. So what we're doing here is just putting a grommet in. So Danny's going on the inside now, so he can actually screw this off from the inside and lock it off. So this grommet will basically sit on the top of the corrugation. I will need to put some silicone to finish that off. So on a little bit of an angle. Is that threading?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay, that's looking pretty good, Danny. This is 6 mil and it can take up to 46 amp. Now this tiny home is going to run 32 amp going by the switch and the head. Okay, so all I've got to do is feed this through and this will run the power into the tiny home. Danny, thank you very much.
No worries, you're welcome.
And so now we're ready to put the insulation in the walls and then put on the wall lining. So Villaboard in the ensuite and plasterboard everywhere else. So all the electrical's done. We worked late. I actually helped Danny to run some of the wires. So I drilled through the south wall and put a wire through for the spotlight. Also drilled through the east wall for the 2 lights for the entertaining area. So now, even though Danny subcontracts to the rail, he does have some downtime in between contracts. So if you are looking for Danny and he's available, I will put his contacts in the descriptions below. But I'll also put a contact for another fellow I know by the name of Alan, and he's also a pretty good electrician. So now, once the electrical was complete, Daniel from Darnie Air Conditioning came. He brought the little Fujitsu air conditioning unit, which we're going to be putting in here. He checked with the bracketing where we're going to put it. He marked it, and then we drilled a hole through the wall, and he poked the wire through. So that's all ready to go too. And then I went through and took the pelmets off and took the sliding doors out of the internal cavity sliding system. Now this system is made by Hume Doors and Timbers, and if you haven't seen Stage 6, it was in collaboration with them, and I installed them, and it's got a couple of features in there, which is the one touch, so you push and it pops out, and it's also got a soft close. It's the first time I put them in, and it's so easy to do. So I'll put a link for that in the descriptions below. Now I've taken the doors out because this now needs to be chalked up with a block. I need to put a block back here. I will use sticky tape, and in fact I'll do that now. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So when you put your wall sheets on, it will distort the wall. So you need to have that block in there when you're putting your sheeting on. And then once you set it and it's braced, then it shouldn't move. So in between the rain, I went to Plaster Master in Mitchenberry and I picked up the Villaboard I need. And so now I'm ready to install that once the insulation's on. One thing I forgot to mention, my wife asked if we can have a bookshelf. The only wall that I could use is this one here. So I raised the noggin up to 1.2 meters, and then I put another noggin on the lower section. So then when the wall sheeting comes to the back of this, then I can dress this up with timber, and then we can have this as a bookshelf. I think it's going to look fantastic. So now we're ready to put the insulation insulation in, and this insulation is made by Knuff or Knuff, and it has an R2 insulation value. And so then when we put the color bond on the outside, we used an Anicon, and that had also insulation, and it was rated at 1.3. So now the walls, the outer walls, will be rated at 3.3, which is fantastic. And so now it is recommended when you do put insulation in, especially internally, you need to put a suit on. And the biggest killer in the building trade is silicosis. So I'm not going to take any chances. I'm going to suit up. Okay, so when you open these bags up, you'll find it'll expand dramatically. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is now complete. Fantastic. Didn't take long to do this room. It's a little bit of effort going around the triangles, just like everything with the timbers and all the rest that I had to work with. So the one thing I didn't mention, the size or the dimension of this insulation is 430, which is made for a 450 center stud spacing, and also 1160 for 1200. But it is rated at 90 for 90 mil studs. These are 70 mil. You can still use an R2 for 70 mil, but it will just compromise a little bit of the insulation value, but not much. It's been, what, 12 years since I've done this when we built our house. And my boys Matthew and Marcus actually helped me with it, and they look just as strange as this. So most of these walls are around 450 centers, as I said in stage 4. Now, in this case here, where this bracing was made, this steel cross bracing with the SHS 70 mil, I had to space them a little bit further apart, just over 500. Thanks to my mate Tony, he's donated some 580 insulation, so this works perfect in this area. Okay, it's all done and this looks incredible. I'm very happy with this. So now I'm ready to go to the next stage, which is lining the ensuite wall with Villaboard. All the insulation is complete. In actual fact, it's quite warm in here. I do apologize about the darkness of the video when I was putting the insulation in. The insulation has now stopped the reflective light from the foil, the Anticon, and so it's a little dark in here, but also because it was severely overcast. Now they are predicting a lot more rain, so I do apologize once again about the video quality. Now once I do get the linings on the walls, the quality of the video will increase again. So now I've marked out my sheeting, put some marks on my levels, and I'm going to be spacing the fixing points at every 150 millimeters, remembering that this tiny home may be transportable, so I want this to be as strong as possible. Okay, there we go. You'll see in a minute why I'm doing this. And so now the width of that ensuite is 1600, but I'm going to cut this sheet at 1595. I'm going to make it slightly shorter so I'm not struggling to put it in. Okay, so now in regards to cutting the sheet, there's a lot of people that still use grinders to cut Villaboard or any kind of masonry, and it's fine if you wear a mask, but it's very inconvenient taking a sheet outside and bringing it back unless you've got your sheets outside in the first place, and if it's not raining, but it is here. So now I'm using the old technique, using a fibro cutter. Not only is it very effective, it's very quick, and I've got to be honest, it burns a bit of calorie, which I need. All right, so now all I do is just lift this sheet up, just put it on my foot. These are steel cap boots. I line the fibro cutter up and start cutting. Seriously faster and easier than a grinder. And so now I've gone through and measured where the flick mix is going. Using a very old hole saw and a very cheap one, I'm going to actually make the hole for the flick mixer instead of hitting it. Some people do use a hammer and just hit it through. Now you can do that, but it actually does damage the integrity of the sheet. So, and then you've got to fill it up later with setting compound and then waterproofing. So it's a lot easier just to use a hole saw. Okay, now that's created a little bit of dust. I'll just walk away from that. Okay, so now it's really important to get this dwarf wall level. So what I'm going to do is just put a quick nail in here. And so now I'll put the level on this side. Okay, so that's the same. Now I'm just going to put a temporary nail, just one nail in here. So now to fix the Villaboard on, they do recommend that you use nails. But in actual fact, I'm going to be using screws here. And I'm going to make sure that I go right through to make it a flat surface so it doesn't stick out for waterproofing. Now, the reason I'm doing that, it is actually better for transporting to have screws rather than nails. So on the ground, there are marks where the studs are, so I know where to line up my timbers. I know the studs are here because the nails are on top. Okay, so you can see now why I've ruled those lines. So much easier without having using the measuring tape constantly. Okay, this one's done. I'll get this out. Just double check this level. Woohoo! And look at that. Perfect. Doesn't move. Okay, so now I just brought the sheet in. I'll put it on in a moment, but there's something really important to note here. There is a pipe going through this wall just at that point there. So I'm going to avoid that whole area just there. And also there's a couple of spots just here. Same. There's one here. Same. There is one here. Okay, so that is the area there, right there, same as the other one. The screws will be going there and there. It goes nowhere near it, so that's fantastic. I can put all the screws in. Oh, look at that. That is perfect. So now, one thing you'll note, I haven't put any stud adhesive on this at all, and I've done that for a reason. It's actually recommended don't put any stud adhesive on Villaboard. Okay, so now I didn't mention this earlier, but there is the steel bottom plate here. I'm going to go high enough to actually get the timber. And another thing I haven't said, you've got to make sure that your studs are actually straight. So you need to put a level on to make sure that the wall's not bowing, because when you're tiling, if it bows, the tile will have to come out. And that means you're going to get lipping on your tiles because the other tiles will need to go in. Okay, so now I'm going to do the cavity sliding door. And as I said before, the block is in there to keep it straight. Just like the dwarf wall, once this is all screwed off, the whole lot, and then set, this actually will hold in solid. Now, because it's got a setting joint here, we don't take the block out until we're finished. In actual fact, I'm not going to take the block out until after I finish tiling. So now I'm just going to put a level on here. It's really important when you are doing sides of the door and then later doing top of the door, they never marry up exactly. So, but if you get it level, the top one and the next one, and just run that measurement across, then you're much more likely to have it straight. Okay, so now even more important than putting the block in to keep this level and straight, you got to use the right screw length. A lot of people use long screws through their sliding cavity door, and then when they go to put the door in, the screws just mark the door, and quite severely sometimes. These are 20mm by 8 gauge, same screws, chipboards. Okay, so now we don't have a lot of timbers here to screw to, but they do recommend every 150. So I'm going to do the 150 this way. So I've gone through and finished off screwing the north wall, the first sheet. I've also cut and installed the west wall, both of them, making sure I missed all the pipes and cut the power point and also the penetrations for the tap. Then I've put a level and put in the first sheet on the wall where the vanity's going. So now I'm ready to put on the south wall. So I've measured the height that I need. I'm ready to cut it. I've marked out my screw holes. Okay, so now this is sitting on the joints perfectly. I'm very happy with that. Okay, last one's done. This sheet was so easy to put on. Okay, so now I've measured and cut the next sheet, the top taper. Now this section here is the window. A little bit tricky. How do I get in there? Okay, again, when in doubt, give a clout. Okay, so if you are going to do this, make sure you don't hit where your mark is because it can actually damage that section. So I'm purposely not going anywhere near it. So now I'll just cut that through. Okay, she's done. Okay, so I've cut the last sheet for the east wall. So now I've made sure that I missed these pipes. I've marked it on the sheeting. I've also cut a hole for the shower head, and also there's going to be a Mistral fan on the wall. I'm not exactly sure where it's going to go, but I've marked it roughly about this position here. Okay, so the ensuite now is complete with the sheeting. The only section's got to be done around inside the reveal of the window, which are small pieces. I will not be screwing them in. Small pieces of Villaboard tend to crack and break, so I'm just going to glue it in before I waterproof it.
Hi.
And so I've asked Marion to help me because I struggled doing the ensuite. It was really difficult doing that on my own. And so the guys from Plaster Master, where I got these sheets from, have delivered earlier today. Thanks to the delivery guys, they were fantastic. They were very obliging and they put the sheets where we needed them. So it's a lot easier for us to work. So now the regulations on stud adhesive is that you don't put glue where your screws are. So these are 1350 high. So you come down at least 200 mil. Again, got to watch out for your power. So 200 mil, and you can't be any more than 300 mil. Okay, it's really important when you are cutting with a knife is that you hold the straight edge, level, whatever you're using, really tight and scar it really, really well. Put a bit of pressure where the cut is, like that. All right, so now all I do is just cut from the back because there's a crease line here now, and there we go, that's cut. We've marked out where the power point is going, which is here. This is a high power point, just in case we put a TV around the window, under the window area. So what I'm gonna do here is just use a 45 mil hole saw. I think it's a 45. Okay, so now this is the stud adhesive I'm going to be using. So Plaster Master sell the Cineat brand. So this is roughly the thickness you need for the stud adhesive. They do recommend 25 mil by 15 mil. So 25 mil diameter and 15 mil thick. Okay, so one thing you don't do, you don't put the stud adhesives on the top, bottom, or on the sides. You don't put screws anywhere near the stud adhesive. All right, ready to go. Marion, you ready to go?
Let's go.
I'll just put this wire through. All right, Marion, can you just lift it up now and put it against the wall? That's it. Now, what you've got to do here is push against the stud adhesive. You need to push against, let it collapse in. Okay, so now I'm going to use 32 mil bugle screws. These are 6 gauge and made for plasterboard. So now I'll just put some in. So you don't overscrew these. So as I said in stage 4, when I was making the frames around the steel, that I'm doing roughly about 450 centers. Now the reason I did that, because the closer the studs are together, the less damage you'll get on your boards. But I'm also using 13 mil because it's stronger, it's a better heat rejector, and also better soundproofing. So it's a winner all way round. Now one thing is when you do put these bugle head screws in, they do need to go past the paper, as I said, but not too much. So you need to feel it every time you put one in, just make sure that it's not sticking out. So when you do set it, it's not going to hit the trowel. So now what we're going to do is just cut out, just using the plasterboard saw, make sure I don't cut the wires. All right, so just taking 15 mil off the top. Looks a bit messy, but that's fine. It's going to be set anyway. All right, girls, we got it. Last screw. I'll just cut this across. I'm doing small strokes so I don't damage the window. The plasterboard for the walls is now complete and it looks fantastic, with a special thank you to Marion, but also to Mariah. Now with the ceilings, they're gonna have a furring channel. Now the furring channel is 18 mil in height, plus also the bracket will take it to 23 mil. Now, so in preparation to put the furring channels on, I've gone through and put timbers up for the fans. The fan must be fixed to a solid structure. And so I've cut the timbers up, I've centered it to the room and then screwed them into the steel, and then I drilled a hole through the center and ran the fan wire through. And I've also gone through and put a base coat, let it dry, and then put a top coat on the recessed sections up the top. Now the reason I've done that, because I'm going to be using a product called the P50. I'll just show you the profile there. So basically this sits on the ceiling like that on the perimeter of the rooms, both this room and also the bedroom. And so this section you set, this section just sits independent against the wall. Now the reason I'm using that product, because as I said before, this tiny home could be transported, and I didn't want the ceiling and the walls to be set together because it could allow for cracking. Also, I've got to mention that I did buy a piece of timber and placed it into the cavity sliding sheeting section to connect those sheets together, because you don't want to keep them loose because there's nothing holding them. And so the plasterboard I'm using on the ceiling is only 10 mil, but it's a reinforced board made for ceilings. fans. And it's actually, in fact, the same board I used on the walls. I wanted to have a stronger system. And so they can span 600 mil between the furring channels, but in actual fact, I would prefer to have them closer to give more strength. Now, it depends on the system you're using and what board you're using on how far apart you can space these. All right, so I'm ready to put the first clip in, and I'm going to be using that 16mm hex head metal self driller. So I'll just put that in. I'm just going to come off the wall about 5mm, just give me a bit of room in case there's a little bit of a waver in the sheets. All right, so now I'm going to set up a laser to run a line, beam it through, so I can get the brackets in pretty straight. And now this is a DeWalt, and Tony has lent it to me so I can get this fairly accurate. Thanks, Tony. Okay, so now to make life easier, I'm going to use my Hilti laser measurer so I don't have to struggle with a measuring tape. Okay, 4591. I'm going to minus around about 6mm off that, make it 4585. Okay, so now I'll put it in. I'm going to put the back in first, and then all I do is just squeeze that in like that. Works beautifully. All right, that's in. Beautiful, this goes in so easy, whoa. Okay, as I said before, this is a system. And so what I've got in my hands is a J channel. So basically see the letter J, hopefully, there it is there. And so I'm gonna put the longer lip on the base and the shorter lip on top. Now we're gonna have to screw into this later, but for now, I'm gonna slip this into this channel. Okay, that's gone in beautifully. Okay, that's clipped in. All the furring channels are now in. So I've done the ensuite, that turned out really good. And now all I've got to do is lock in the J channels. Now to do that, you got to get your level first, make sure that everything's straight. So what I do is just run this up here. Okay, so that's pretty straight. I can see there's no bow in it. And so then I put a mark, which is already there. Then I go through and do the other side as well, which I've already done. And then I place the level to see how that looks. And that's dead straight. Very happy with that. So all I've got to do now is put the last J channel in, which is on the steel section in the lounge room. Okay, so now the screws I'm going to be using is made by Bremic. They're the same screws I used on the flooring, which is in stage 6. If you haven't seen that stage, I'll put a link in the descriptions below. And so these are a truss head, and so it's really easy to use. Now, I was pre-drilling with a lot of the other screws. With these ones here, I found I didn't need to pre-drill. So I'm just going to drill that in. That's it, it's all done. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is just put some silicone around the penetration sections of where the wire went into the steel, just to stop it from moving, just like Charlie did with the plumbing pipes. I'm ready to put the insulation on in the ceiling. And so now this insulation is actually R2.5s. Now the outer parameter, as I said before, is 1.3. So now that's going to take it up to 3.8 R rating, which is pretty good for a tiny home. All right, so now these are 430s, so they'll fit in between the 900 or just under 900 spacings of the ceiling joists. Okay, this room is complete. It didn't take hardly any time. So now I'll go through and do the bedroom and then the ensuite. All done. And I've gone through also and marked where the screws are going to go for the plasterboard, just on the furring channel. Okay, so now I'm ready to put the ceiling boards on. And Tony delivered his sheet lifter to me the other day, and this thing is incredible. It makes his job so much easier. So I've put it together, but to my surprise, he rang me and said he's on his way, and he just arrived. Hey, Tony.
Musa, how you going?
Thanks for coming. Mate,
Guys,
thanks very much for all your help. Seriously, Tony has been instrumental for this tiny home. When I told him I'm building a tiny home back a while ago, he got excited and I don't know why, but he's been supplying me with all his materials. He's a commercial builder, and so he's from DNA Plastering, and he does a great job. And so he supplied me the timbers. They were repurposed timbers. They turned out really well. Tony, thanks once again for them.
no problem.
And so, Tony, thank you for bringing me up to speed with the regulations through Australian standards on how to put plasterboard on. It's changed a little since I've done it. The last time I built a house was, 13 years ago, nearly 12, 13 years ago. And so there are new regulations, and even blocking on ceilings, that's more of a new thing, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so I'm going to show you how to do the blocking. It's pretty simple. It just adds a bit more time, but it does save the cracking, because very often you get cracks in the ceiling. So it's accepted not to use stud adhesive on ceilings, but you've got to put a lot more screws. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So on a 1350 sheet, how many screws would that need?
6 across.
I've done a lot of bathroom renovations in my time, and every time I strip the walls, I see the glue has become brittle after about 30, 40 years. Have you found that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Most of each ceiling, they start to drop and
Yes.
the screws start to pop.
Yep. So Tony's been very gracious with his time and really helping me out. Setting actually for me is quite hard, because you've got to push hard on the trowel, and it does put pressure on my back. And so he's going to help me out there. And because his time is limited, we're going to fast track or time lapse this stage. Okay, so now using the Hilti measurer, it comes out 3047. I'm going to deduct 26 mil to allow for the P50 to go in all the way around. Okay, we had a really late night last night. Tony, thanks for everything. And the blocking is so hard. I've never done blocking before, or the back blocking. So that's just to secure the two sheets on a long run. Is that correct?
It's required when you have 3 recess joints or more.
Okay. And this is what you call level 4, which is a standard now. Is that right?
It's level 4. Yes.
Level 4. Level 5 is when you have to block every single sheet. Is that correct?
Yes, and skim set the whole ceiling.
Wow. Okay, so now I've just gone through and done a big cleanup, and Tony's just now preparing the walls ready to do the base coat. So he's gone through and just backfilled just before he does the taping. Now what I'm going to do is go through and put the angles in. So all the external corners, I'm going to put reinforced metal. You can use plastic. And I'm going to be using this product, never used before. Tony has generously allowed me to use it. So it's made by Trimtex. It's called 847A, and it's just a trim adhesive, is that called?
Spray adhesive.
A spray adhesive, yeah. So this just makes it a bit easier. I will use my staple to staple in place, but this just helps the adhesion.
Yep.
I've also got to put it around the window, and then I've got to put also the tearaway strip. So around the door and around the inside of the window, the reveal. Is that right?
That's correct, and that's where we'll be using
This one more so. Okay, so now Tony's went and brought his radio. He's a much happier man when it's on. Okay, Tony, we're done. This looks fantastic. Man, thank you very much. This is incredible. You are very good.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay, so what we did is 2 lots of base coat, 1 top coat. That's the normal procedure. Even on the screw holes. So everything looks fantastic. We also used a product called a
Trimtex LB Tearaway.
tearaway. Now this we put around the door and also in the reveal of the window. So once you finish setting, it actually finishes level to the trim, and you just tear that away. It's fantastic. And so Tony, you said painters sometimes leave that on until they finish painting at least the first 2 coats, and then they tear away and put it on the last coat.
Yes.
Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So this is fantastic. That made my life so much easier. And so Tony, the P50s, I have never done them before. They're so easy to put on.
Yeah.
But you do need to be very careful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you've got to get it hard up as possible. We did end up using screws. Tony said that most people use staples.
Staples and adhesive.
Yeah, and adhesive. We chose not to. We wanted to lock this in because this tiny home will be moving most probably. So we wanted to lock it all in. Now, again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The reason I used P50s is because I did not want to actually bond the wall and the ceiling together. Forgot to mention this trowel, I call it a 1-inch trowel, basically just to mock Tony. The guy is so specific. He wanted to make sure that the walls are dead straight. In actual fact, this is a 16-inch trowel. It's the biggest I've seen. One thing I forgot to mention, when you're setting Villaboard, which is for the ensuite, you've got to use a product that does not re-emulsify, which means it does not break down if any water gets to it. Now, 70% of waterproofing fails because it's not done properly. So there's a lot of things you need to take care of, and one of them is to make sure that all the products that you use in the bathroom does not re-emulsify. The tape I used was Easy Tape. I believe that's fiberglass, is that right, Tony?
Correct.
Yeah, so I use that because if you use a paper, that re-emulsifies. So now the next stage to this tiny home is going to be stage 8, where we're going to do the tiling for the bathroom. Now, it might sound like that's going to be very basic, but it's not. It's going to include how to do the primer, the waterproofing membrane, the tiling the floors, the walls, putting in the grout, and also placing the silicone. So now if you're looking for Tony's services from DNA Plastering, I will put a link for him in the descriptions below once again. And so now this is not going to be the end of Tony. He's agreed to be on another video with me. So we're going to do most probably a bathroom renovation. Is that right, Tony?
Probably, yes.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. And so Tony does suffer from husband lazy-itis. Now he needs a bit of motivating from me.
Yep.
Is that right?
That's correct.
So if you haven't seen the stages from 1 to 6 for this tiny home build, I'll put a link for them in the descriptions below, but I'll also put a link for Dani, the electrician, and also Daniel from Darnie Air Conditioning. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And if you have any comments at all, please leave them below and I will get back to you. And I ask you, please consider to subscribe, hit the like button and share this video, and there's many more to come. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Dani's just throwing me off. Okay.
The good-looking electrician. I'll mention him later.
Okay, that's in. Okay, can you girls hold that? I'm just going to have a cup of coffee. I'll be back in a minute. Oh, is that okay? So now, unfortunately, because we did the time lapse, you didn't get to hear Tony singing. What an incredible voice this guy's got. Seriously.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure just listening to you.
Likewise.